translate because I need to do the live stream for the result. So I probably will do at least 4 or 5 hours tonight.
Well, that's a lot. Yeah, you've been so busy lately.
I just so wish we have a good result that everybody wishes. All right.
Right.
Okay, yeah. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Cheyenne's Forum. Today is November 5th, the important day, most important day in the history, if not the only one. So here is our dear friend, my dear friend, Tom. Tom, so nice to see you today. So nice to see you, Tom.
Thank you. Great to see you.
Yeah, Tom is at Chicago right now, right? Illinois.
Correct.
Thank you so much.
Madison, Illinois, about 25 miles south of Chicago.
Oh, that's pretty close, though.
Yeah, I was born in Chicago, but I grew up here in Madison.
So, how's your town looks like today?
Good. A little drizzly outside, but
Uh-huh.
60 some degrees, not bad.
Not too bad. So, excuse me. Tom worked in FBI for 30 years and he worked as an assistant director for 5 years and he's retired now. And today he's in Chicago with his father to watch the November 5th, the important day in our history. So what do you feel today so far? Everything goes well, or how do you feel about the
Well, I
election?
feel that,
Mhm.
basically, I was thinking over the last months that the polls are highly inaccurate
Mhm.
and that the election can't possibly be as close as what they're predicting.
Right.
Now, maybe it's going to be, and I'm wrong, but I don't know. I think
Mhm.
that because all of the surveys they've done, Trump is so far ahead on
Mhm.
each given topic, whether it's the border or whether it's the economy or
Right.
any number of topics, inflation,
Mhm.
he's always way ahead
Right.
of Kamala Harris. And
Mhm.
then they come out and say, yeah, but it's close. Who knows who's going to win?
Doesn't
The
make sense.
the I don't think it's going to be that close, but
Mm.
we'll see. We'll see if
Sure,
I'm right or wrong.
sure. Yeah，我今天会有一个新的改变哈，就是 就是为说中文的朋友，因为今天晚上我们要做这个大选直播，所以会有很长时间，我今天就没有时间来做这个中文的跟 Tom 的采访，所以我跟 Tom 商量一下，就今天呢，我会就这个节目啊，我们叫中英文的，就是说 Tom 说一段，然后我就把它翻成中文，这样我就不用另再做一个中文的翻译了。那刚才呢，我介绍 Tom，他在 FBI 工作了30年，那其中呢，他担任了很高的领导职位，那其中有5年他是 FBI 的副局长。啊，那他的一些详细的简历，我们会在节目后面给大家做出来。现在他退休了，那今天呢，他在芝加哥 Chicago 哈，跟他的这个父亲的家中，跟我们一块儿来做这个节目。那我问他对于现在这个选举怎么看？那他说，他觉得，first of all，首先就是说，选举现在和之前出来的一些民调，他非常不相信啊，就是说好像川普跟哈里斯很接近。啊，这个他感到很怀疑，因为在所有的政策单项的这个民调当中，那川普总统呢都是远远高于哈里斯，那为什么在整个的民调中他们会这么接近呢？所以说他是对这个民调的一个非常不信任啊，就是主流民调的不信任，所以他们就说，那我们看一下了，最后会是个什么结果？Thank you so much, Tom. So what your project? What do you think the result of today? First of all, can we have the result today or early morning tomorrow? And second, what is could be?
Well, it could be if you go back 2016
Mm-hmm,
when Trump was running against Hillary Clinton.
mm-hmm,
When it got into the evening, later into the evening, Hillary's going to win. She had the popular vote. The surveys all said that she had 5, 6, 7 points ahead of him
mm-hmm,
and that she was going to win. And I
mm-hmm,
remember watching it. And when it got to be a little after midnight Eastern time, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock, all of a sudden they start counting votes that are coming in. And oh no, Trump's going to win. CNN, I'm flipping channels between CNN, Fox News, and back and forth, back and forth. And
mm-hmm,
all of a sudden, CNN, and I can recall John King at their anchor board, at their map, and he starts saying, Trump's starting to pick up votes. Trump's votes are coming in. They're gaining momentum. And then, I don't know, must have been 2 or 3 in the morning when they said, Trump wins. And everybody was unbelievable. You see all the people, the anchor people on TV are crying. How could this be? How could Trump win? Oh, poor Hillary. What happened? And then, the rumors are that she's up in her campaign headquarters, despondent, drinking, can't believe it. She has one of her spokesmen say that she's going to concede in the morning, or she'll make a talk in the morning. She can't talk right now, or something, some excuse like that. So that was what happened then. Then 4 years later, in 2020, we have a complete anomaly. We have the COVID election, Biden hiding in his basement for the whole campaign, and all of that. And all the numbers were out of whack. You couldn't really tell what was really going to happen by the end of that. And then also is when you had the accusations of tremendous voter fraud with the drop boxes, with the mail-in ballots, because it's COVID. People can't go outside, can't go to the polls, so they're going to mail in their ballots. We have all these allegations that there was tremendous fraud, and it was never resolved at the time.
Right，他说就是，我就问他说，首先呢，就是今天晚上会不会出结果？另外，他可能觉得这个结果会怎么样？他先回答了一段，他就说回忆一下2016年，当时 CNN 哈，他记得非常清楚啊，希拉里和川普。那之前呢，看起来希拉里赢，可是到了午夜之后啊，那看起来川普就 pick up 了。那他记得很清楚，大概到凌晨2、3点的时候呢，CNN 就 call 说川普赢了。他说那时候 CNN 的那些播音员啊，就在那儿，有的就痛哭流涕的，完全就不敢想象。那希拉里当天晚上也没有出来认输，是第二天才出来的，所以这是在2016年的情况。那2020年的情况就更加复杂。第一个呢有 COVID，那之后很多就是这种邮寄选票。那我们也看到拜登啊，始终待在他的 basement 也不出来。那之后又有非常大量的这样一个选举舞弊的一个指控。So Tom, this year is different than 2020. We don't have COVID, and we have a Democrats candidate who at least come out to do some rallies, even though the rally is so not that good. But I just wonder why we still have the mail-in ballot. Why we still have that? Because we have that because of the COVID, and this year is kind of normal. Why we still keep the special?
The Democratic Party does not want to give up various methods that create an environment for them to cheat. Mail-in ballots are the easiest to cheat with, to commit fraud. The drop boxes are another one where people can mass drop pre-printed ballots already into the drop box. So they don't want to eliminate that. Just like they don't want voter ID. They don't want any of the logical mechanisms that would reduce voter fraud.
Sure.
And the only reason to have those mechanisms is so they can cheat.
Right.
Now, the Democratic Party, using voter ID is so discriminatory against the minorities because they can't go get ID. Yet, if you recall past summer, the Democratic National Convention, you couldn't get in without a government ID.
Right.
So they're just hypocrites. And they're only interested in trying to cheat. And that's the only reason for fighting all of these logical remedies to cheating, including the most logical, paper ballots on election day.
Yeah.
That would be the hardest to cheat. But they want whatever method they can use to continue to cheat and commit voter fraud. That's what they want.
Right. And for this year, I think the Republic has some preparation for them to cheat. They know that Democrats always going to cheat. And this year they will cheat more, looks like. So the Republic have some preparation, or do you think it's enough for the preparation? Right now, I know the number is they have 230,000 volunteers at least the swing states, 7 swing states, and 500 lawyers on the 7 states. Do you think it's enough?
Maybe. Don't know. I think that it's gonna help make a difference to reduce voter fraud. Will it
Sure,
be enough? I
sure,
don't know, depending on how close it is. Now, I
right.
think Trump has used the expression that the election there should be so many votes for him that it's too big to rig. That
Right.
they could steal so many votes, but they're not going to be able to steal the millions it's going to take to
Hmm.
overcome Trump being elected. I
Right.
don't know. We'll see what happens with that if that turns out to be true.
Sure, sure. And then我就是问他，就是2020年的情况和2024是很不一样的，因为2020有 COVID，所以他们用这个 mail，就是那个邮寄选票，可是今年根本就没有，为什么还要这样用邮寄选票？那他们的回答很干脆啊，他说因为这个是最容易欺骗的，那民主党是一定会去欺骗的。那一个就是邮寄选票容易欺骗，还有一个就是 drop boxes，就是那个邮寄邮筒，这个都是非常容易欺骗的。那另外还有一个，他们坚决抵制这个 voter ID，那这个呢也是他们作为欺骗的一个工具，所以这个是他们的一个做法。那我就问他说呢，共和党现在我们看到有23万的义工在全美各州，特别是7个摇摆州，另外有500个律师分配在这个摇摆州，所以我就问他，你觉得够不够？他说我们要看，因为今年的一个目标就是我们的赢面非常大，所以让他们没有办法去，即便是你舞弊也赢不了，所以我们要有待于观察这样的一个事情啊。So what do you did you see some news today, like Pennsylvania, like on Arizona, Michigan? Did you see any news?
Yeah, I've been watching it, and
Sure.
they're saying the voter turnout is high, and
Hmm.
we'll see. And in some places, they're saying the voter turnout is not that high because there were so many early votes, for the last month or two.
Right.
So a lot of it, what will happen is whatever the result is, they'll find a way to spin it. Why that happened?
Yeah.
Well, everybody voted already, or no, they didn't vote already. Now,
Uh-huh.
at least as of today, most of the country has pretty good weather, so you don't
Right.
have severe weather all over trying to, block people from going to the polls and those issues.
Hmm.
But you know, we don't know. We'll find out as the evening progresses, as it goes to overnight.
Hmm.
And like I said, the pollsters and the anchors and the commentators on the media, the contributors, whatever turns out, they'll say they knew it all along and they had the answer and here's why it happened. So we'll see.
You're right, you're right. 所以我就就是问他说，今天他有没有看新闻？他觉得这个目前情况怎么样？他说看了一些新闻啊，那就说至少他有一点哈，这也是其实很重要的一点，就是各地的天气比较好，weather 比较好，这其实是很重要的。有时候在选举日的时候天气不好，那就会阻止很多人出来投票。那但是他说呢，不过这个现在看一些报道呢，就是说出来投票的人还是比较多，但是有一些呢似乎也不多。不过呢，这个新闻媒体啊，他总会找到所有的理由。出来人多也有理由，出来人不多也有理由，因为他可能会说很多人已经 early vote 了，那这样呢就是早投了，所以这个情况呢就是要看今天最后的一个开票结果为准。好，So Tom, what time that Illinois gonna close? 8 o'clock, right? Your local time.
I don't know here exactly what
Oh, yeah,
time.
you vote at
Yeah,
Virginia.
I
So,
already vote. My wife and I voted in Virginia in
right.
September when they had early voting because we were in the process of moving from Fairfax County to Loudoun County.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't want to take a chance of waiting till we moved and not knowing how long Loudoun would take to re register us. So we were registered in Fairfax. We were still living in Fairfax. When they opened early voting, I think we voted on the second day of early voting.
Mm-hmm. Good. And I follow Elon Musk very closely because he just puts so many information every single day, every single hour, even every single minute. This guy is just a superman. So he just this morning said the Democrats people turn out as the number is bigger than the Democrats voters. it looks good, and he just encouraged people to keep voting, and then they actually asked men to come out to vote. It seems like in early vote, from the stats, from the number, you can see more women come out to do the early vote than the men. So they're asking for more men voters come out to vote. Actually, they ask every single person to come out to vote. So do you think it's the tradition or the habits that most of American voters like to vote at the vote at November 5th, not early?
I think yes, because of tradition, vote on election day. But
Right,
what's happened at the last couple of elections is the Democrats have voted early,
right,
and so many have voted that
hmm
come election day, the Republicans are already way behind. And if
right,
the weather's bad, if there's other things happening, they may not catch up.
right.
And also, unfortunately, Trump himself, the last two elections, was telling people don't vote on
Right,
election day, don't vote early.
right.
And then the Republican National Chairman or Chairwoman
hmm
was fired, Ronna
Yeah, she's
McDaniel,
really bad.
and the
Uh-huh.
new leadership of the RNC, Watley
Mhm.
and Lara Trump from North Carolina, absolutely, and they convinced Trump, stop that. Tell people vote as soon as you can vote
Right,
early,
right.
and don't have us get beaten
hmm
by so many people voting early and being way ahead on election day so we can't catch up. And this time, Trump did that. So from the beginning rallies that he's been doing all year, he's
Right.
been encouraging vote, period. As soon as you can vote in your state, your jurisdiction, vote, get it done. And then I think what happened is that when people see the damage that Hurricane Helene
hmm
did
Right.
in North Carolina and Tennessee in particular, and they saw polling places washed away, I
hmm
think that was another convincing factor. That could happen in your district.
Right.
Don't take a chance. If you're able to vote,
Right.
early voting is open in your state. The
Right.
weather will be better. There's no hurricane. If there's no tornadoes, go vote, period. And this time they did. So you
Right.
have all of these Republican voters have gone and voted early. And
hmm
that's, I think, is going to make an enormous difference this time when they
Right.
finally have the count for that.
Great. I remember you asking people here in our podcast said go vote when you can vote. Just
Right.
go and vote. It's so important. 呀，我就问他，就是说，现在看起来就是美国从伊朗马斯克刚刚发的一个信息，大概3个小时之前，他说现在看起来呢，这个情况是不错的，但是继续请每一个人都出来 vote。那他给了一个 number，就是说给了个数字啊，就是说，好像在早期投票女性比较多，男性比较少。那就 asking 就是呼吁更多的男性出来，所以我就问 Tom 说，是不是大家还是比较习惯于在这个选举日去投票，11月5号投票？他说对，这个是一个美国很传统的，因为你 early 就是你 vote on the day，就是这么一个传统。那这个呢，他也谈到，就实际上呢，在前几次的这个选举当中，特别是2020选举中，那民主党他就利用了这个早期投票的问题。那大部分人投出来之后，但是就是有很多民主党的早期投票，可是，在11月5号共和党去投票的时候，有时候机器出问题，有时候天气不好等等，就是你就这样跑步起步晚了这样。所以他说呢，今年的情况就很不一样，因为这个 Laura Trump 和共和党的很多人去说服川普，就是我们要早投票。既然他们早投票，那我们也要早投票，所以到处的呼吁。那 Tom 在我们的节目中，其实他也呼吁过，就是说你们一定要能够早投票的，一定要早投票，因为你不知道后来发生什么。那之后呢，他说这个大飓风哈，使很多地方南部各州很多投票站都给冲掉了，所以这个也是对人们的一个很好的提醒，就是说在你还能投票的时候，一定要出去投票。那汤姆在我们的节目上其实也呼吁大家赶快出去投票，他自己也是早投的。那他认为呢，这个决策和动作呢，看来是成功的，那会就是使得结果会有一个非常大的不同。好，See, Tom, I actually saw some news that there are some incident or accident happen at Michigan, at Pennsylvania, at Arizona already. But in Pennsylvania and Arizona, they solved the problem because they have the lawyers at the local location and talk to some people, and then they solve the problem. But I don't know about Michigan. There's a city in Michigan and said there is a gas leak, and then they closed the station. So it's pretty similar. Remember, 2020 that happens as well. So we'll see if the Republic can go there and just solve the problem.
In 2020, you had that happen in Arizona. And so in Republican areas, when they went to the polls in their district, the machines weren't working.
Yeah.
And then they went to another district trying to vote, and those machines weren't working.
Yeah.
And so just miraculously, the machines in Republican districts didn't work, but they worked fine in Democratic districts. And again, one more argument for voting early before anybody realizes it and tries to sabotage the equipment or cheat with the machines or with the ballots or mail-in ballots. And I think it's yet another argument. And another argument that the Republicans have been making is the Democrats are going to cheat no matter what. If they can get away with it, they're going to do it. Don't let them. Or try to countermand their effort by voting early yourself and not wait till election day.
Right, exactly. Tom，就是我刚才就是问 Tom，就是现在实际上我们也在这些摇摆州发现情况了，出现情况了。那比如说宾夕法尼亚州、这个亚利桑那州和密歇根州都有情况出现。那密歇根州呢是这个煤气漏了，所以有一个市里面的投票站就关了。那这个宾夕法尼亚州和亚利桑那州呢都是机器又出问题了。这个打不出来了，或者打出来的都是不对的。那现在呢，共和党已经介入，在宾夕法尼亚州跟亚利桑那州，那这两个地方的问题现在基本解决了。那密歇根州现在还不知道，因为一个市的投票的人还是很多的，所以最后他们会重新投还是怎么处理？我们现在正等着这个结果。那 Tom 就说他其实呢，这就是再一次的证明，就是这个早期投票是必要的，至少在2024年，这是非常非常必要的，因为总会出现这样那样的一些问题，特别是这个我们大家都知道，民主党不管怎么样，他们是会作弊的啊，所以就是目前情况是这样。So Tom, what do you think that we can have the result today or early morning tomorrow?
Well, I hope so. And I think we could. Like I said, in 2016, they pronounced Trump the winner 2 or 3 in the morning Eastern time. So it didn't even take all night and all day the next day. Right. Now, here you've had some states, secretaries of state in some states saying, oh, it could take 4 days. It could take 8 days. It could take all that. So the idea, to me, the most important thing will be that if Trump gets enough votes in the key electoral states that, again, too big to rig, and if they don't have the vote count finished in that state for a week, who cares if there's enough in the other states to declare a winner?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. That's what we all hope gonna happen tonight. 所以我问了他们，就是说今天晚上会不会有结果，或者明天凌晨会不会有结果？那他们说希望是这样，也其实应该是这样。那他说就是2016年的时候，实际上宣布川普赢，但是在凌晨2点半左右。那么当然我们也知道，现在有很多州里面这个州的州务卿负责选举的，就是我们要好几天以后才能够把最后的结果出来。但是呢，这个地方就是叫做 too big to rig， 就是我们的赢面足够大，大到一个其实你后来的选票已经不重要了。就是说So Tom, what do you mean is we hope that even if we only count 80% of the vote of the ballots, we already know who's the winner, right? For example, so the rest 20%, it doesn't matter.
It might be true, but the analysts, for example, the really good ones, and I have a lot of respect for John King at CNN. He's one of the better ones. Bill Hemmer will be at the map for Fox News. Several other news channels have pretty good analysts. But what will happen is, as they're bringing up the picture of each state, and it'll show which counties all the votes have been tabulated in
Right.
and whether they're red or blue or independent. And they'll have a good idea of the counties where the votes aren't finalized. So they can look at a map of Pennsylvania and say, doesn't matter, 95% of the votes can be in, but the Philadelphia County and the Pittsburgh matters because they're going to be blue. If you're
Right.
looking at a map of Illinois, all of Illinois can be red except for Chicago, but if Chicago's blue, that's enough to win the state. Now, one of the interesting things, and I've tried to explain this to people, I don't think they quite understand, especially Democrats, they want to eliminate the Electoral College. The reason we have it, the founding fathers 250 years ago recognized then, with the 13 colonies and 13 states original, that they realized then that without an Electoral College, if it was only popular vote, Philadelphia, New York City, Boston, that would be it. Whoever they voted for would be president. And the other states, Vermont, New Hampshire, the smaller states, it wouldn't matter. Right. So the idea was that the Electoral College balances it out so that the small and medium-sized states do matter, and especially cumulatively. Now, interestingly, in 2016, during the campaign, presidential candidate Trump didn't understand the Electoral College. Most people don't. And he advocated then, do we really need this? And what's the story with it? Because it also meant the campaigns had to spend more money. And they had to campaign in North Dakota, South Dakota, Colorado, Montana, Idaho, all of these states that have very few electoral, but cumulatively, they have a lot. And so he thought at the time, well, do we really need that? Later, when he wins the Electoral College, he's like, that's a pretty good system. Those guys, those founders, when they figured that out, they were pretty smart, pretty intelligent system. And interestingly, in 2016, Hillary Clinton stupidly decided to listen to the polls. Oh, she's 7-8 points ahead. She's going to win. And her husband, Bill Clinton, who knew a little bit about getting elected president, Bill Clinton was trying to tell her, you need to go to those Rust Belt states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania. Don't take it for granted. And she did. She didn't go. And so she loses later. And Bill Clinton says, told you so. Told you needed to go campaign in those states. And she just thought, I didn't need to. And she, interestingly, 2016, she really proved the value of the Electoral College because she won the popular vote nationwide. And then, but still lost the election because all those smaller states, the Democrats like to insult those states. They call them flyover country because they fly over from California to New York, the only places in the world that matter, East Coast, West Coast. Who cares about the middle of the country? That's flyover country. Well, the middle of the country helped Trump get elected in 2016. Now, 2020 is a complete anomaly with drop boxes and mail-ins and COVID and all of that. That's a complete difference. Now, that's the difference.
Right. So thank you so much, Tom, to explain the difference. That is the huge difference, and that is the greatest point of the system. It's so smart when founding father established this system. They really understand human beings. So yeah, let me translate to the Chinese audience. 我就是问Tom 就是今天晚上会不会有这个结果的问题啊？所以我就问他说，这是不是我们在期待着80%的，就 for example， 就是举个例子来讲，就当我们点出80%的选票的时候，我们其实就已经知道输赢了。那剩下的20%的票，还没有点，那个其实已经不重要了。就是说你的赢面已经超过20%了，所以那20%剩下的点不点都无所谓了。那我就问他是不是这么理解这个事情？就是我们一直在强调 too big to rig， 太大了的一个赢，所以你已经没有办法做手脚了。他说基本上就是这样，因为他讲了几个，一个叫 John King 是 CNN 的一个 分析员，还有他说这个 Fox News 有几个分析员还算是比较客观的，他们就是在谈到，因为你开票的时候，它是一个县一个县的开票的。所以呢，你可以从每一个县的这个开票的情况呢，基本上断定说这个州可能会，就是给谁了。那或者说有两个大县就会决定这一个州的这个走向。所以有一些小县的这些票就是没有点出来，不影响大局。所以他讲的是这个问题。那在这里面他又再次强调这个选举人团票的这个重要性，而不是叫 popular vote。那 popular vote 呢，就是绝对数。那美国一共是1亿3000万的这个选民，所以这个就是比谁的这个绝对选票数多，那就变成这个就成为总统。但是美国的设计不是这样设计的，它要靠选举人票，因为如果是按照这个 popular vote 的话，那基本上美国几个大城市人口集中的地方就决定了美国总统是谁。那么人口少的这些州就根本没有发言权。那比如说，如果美国去做这个 popular vote 的，就是按照 popular vote 绝对多数选的话，基本上纽约、加州、这个芝加哥这些大城市，只要投一投票，中间的这些州根本是就跟着走了，只能，所以他就缺乏一个平衡。那选举人票呢，正是来做这个平衡的工作的，所以这个设计是非常精妙的。所以他就举了2016的例子，以及2020的例子啊，就是说。当时2016年，希拉里是赢了选举人团票，赢了这个绝对多数的，但是他选举人团票输了，所以他说，川普总统后来他经过这一遭之后啊，他是觉得这个选举人团票这个设计是非常非常精妙的啊，非常精妙的。So Tom, so most the president when they win the White House, they win the both, right? Popular votes and electoral votes.
Usually. But like
Okay,
I said, Hillary Clinton was an example where she won the popular vote. So
right,
she got the votes that she received in New York City,
right.
Boston, Philadelphia, Chicago,
Mm-hmm,
Los Angeles, San Francisco,
mm-hmm,
that they gave her the majority, overwhelming the popular votes in all the other states of the country, those
mm-hmm,
big cities.
right,
But because of the Electoral College and the Midwest, the flyover country states,
mm-hmm,
voting for Trump, that's how she lost. So the
right.
Electoral College, the majority of Electoral College votes were won by Trump.
Right, exactly. 那他就是也是在谈到这个问题，我就问他说，美国的总统基本上应该大部分，因为到现在选的是第47任了嘛，哈，应该大部分都是两个都赢，一个就是赢了大多数的选票，然后也赢了这个选举人团的票。那他说是绝大部分是这样的，但是像希拉里那样就是一个意外，and that's why Democrats want to have the president only decide by the popular vote.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because they'll always win.
Right, right,
They'll always win because they're always going to have most of the big cities,
right,
Democrats would be
right.
enough to elect them. That's why almost every big city has a Democratic government, Democratic mayor,
Mhm.
and then all of the offices under them are Democratic. And
Right,
so that's what the national elections would always look like without the
right,
electoral college.
right, exactly. 所以我就问他说，那就因此民主党一直在推，就是说不要这个选举人团票，让美国的总统就是大众选票决定，谁票多谁就当。那Tom 就说是这样的，因为民主党它占据的地方基本上是大城市，它的这个管理的人口更多哈，就人头更多，所以数人头它是比较有利的，所以他们想改变这个选举人团制的这样一个制度。But I don't think they can do it. They cannot change that. What do you think? This is the base of American system.
I think that I think that there might be enough traditional Democrats that won't allow them to change it. Maybe. In other words, I don't think every member of the Democrat Party will
Okay.
go along with it because they'll recognize that's the reason for having it. Excuse me. So I don't think they can change it. And the other issue that Democrats have wanted to do, a couple of issues. One
Mhm,
was they wanted to add more Supreme Court justices.
mhm,
Now, the U.S. Constitution says the Supreme creates the Supreme Court, and it will oversee decisions of the lower court, be the leading element of the judiciary branch. But the number of justices on the Supreme Court is not specified in the Constitution.
Right.
And the number 9 that we've had now has only been for maybe the last, 75 or 80 years. It has not been from the beginning 250 years ago. So the Supreme Court almost was changed by Franklin Roosevelt in the Depression. He got elected in 1932, and he had Congress passing all of these laws called the New Deal, creating the Works Progress Administration, creating Social Security, and other branches. The the Supreme Court said those are unconstitutional, and they kept knocking down those laws. So then the Democratic Party, under Franklin Roosevelt's leadership, said, okay, we're going to add more Supreme Court justices, and Roosevelt will be appointing them. The Senate will be confirming them, and they'll appoint so many that they'll control the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court got the message and changed their votes and started approving his measures, the New Deal. As a result of that, they didn't add more justices. It stayed 9. And the phrase in the media was the stitch in time that saved 9. That the Democratic Party, agreed that it'll stay 9, but then the 9 voted more the way they wanted them to. And that was settled until recently, where when the Supreme Court becomes more conservative, and it becomes conservative, then liberal. And what happened now is that Donald Trump had 3 Supreme Court justice picks in his first administration. It's very unusual. So they have that many during one presidency, during the 4 years. And so many of the decisions that Democrats don't like have been coming out of the Supreme Court. And for example, many of the laws that Democrats have been passing on gun control, for instance, New York City, the state of New York banning concealed carry weapons, or making it so it's impossible for the average citizen to get a permit to carry a concealed weapon. And the Supreme Court says, no, that violates the Second Amendment. You can't do that. And that knocked that down. So there have been several laws related to firearms that the Supreme Court has taken the position to support the Second Amendment of the Constitution and not allow it. So then they started again. We're going to pack the court. We're going to do all that. And then the other thing that they want to do, or have talked about doing, was to make the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico states. And they're both highly Democratic. Therefore, the Democrats look at that and go, if they were states, that would be 4 more Democratic senators. And we wouldn't have, so as close as the Senate is, it would always be Democratic. And I think that's already, I think the issue on the District of Columbia, that's specified in the Constitution to be a neutral district. So I think that trying to make it a state, that would be unconstitutional. But Puerto Rico and other places, they could make that a state, and there would be 2 Democratic senators and a Democratic 1 or 2 or 3 Congress persons come out of that state permanently. And so far that's failed. So
we'll see.
Now what's happening is they come up with all these ideas, theoretically, after this election today, they won't have enough votes in Congress to be able to do most of these things, and probably won't have the presidency either, hopefully.
This is a good news to us. And then, I'd like to translate this very important message and important history lesson that we need to understand in order to understand current affair. 对，这个 Tom 就跟我在谈，我就问他说，所以说民主党呢，他最喜欢就是用普选来决定哈，所以我说如果他们当政，他肯定会要想办法来改，就不要这个选举人团票了。我问他，就是说他们能改成吗？就即便他有这个机会，他能不能改成？那他们的看法是，他们改成的可能性不大，因为即便是在民主党内部，传统的民主党人他是 value，就是他们其实认为选举团制度应该是非常好的一个 一个设计，就他党内也许都通不过，所以他认为这个可能性是不大的哈。这个共和党当然是肯定不同意的，所以普选的问题是这样，可能他们通不过，但是他们非常想。第一，第二，民主党他们想改的就是这个法庭的人数，现在最高法庭是9个人，9 people 哈。那但是呢，他们在这里了一段历史，就是实际上他们想改最高法庭，让这个最高法庭人更多的时候呢，不是今天才改，是这个富兰克林·罗斯福的时候就想改。在1932年，罗斯福上台之后呢，他搞了一个叫做 New Deal，就是新政。那这个新政里头，其实上我们中国人在学，when we learn American history, we consider the Roosevelt New Deal is a really good sign for American, but maybe not. 对，我就跟他讲说，其实我们在中国学美国历史的时候，一讲起富兰克林新政、罗斯福新政，我们就觉得非常好。但是这个里头其实不是这样的。如果你仔细在研究他的新政，或者如果你持守着是保守主义的观点的话，那是真的要打一个大大的问号。其中一个呢，在新政的时候，他就想把这个最高法院更多的人，但是最后没有通过。所以说最高法院他们想加人，这个是就是相当有历史的一件事情。尤其是现在在川普总统他任命了几个保守派的大法官，那这些法官呢，在大的保守派问题上还是站稳了的。那特别就是一些拥枪权的问题，所以这个事情呢，就是对民主党来说，他们是非常是他们的心头恨哈。那另外他们还会想做的一个呢，就是增加2个地方，一个是波多黎各，还有一个是 Washington D.C， 把它变成州。那变成州之后呢，他们就可以增加这个就是国会的议员哈。那波多黎各因为民主党掌控的，所以他们就肯定又可以多几席国会议员。但是呢，Tom 就指出说，Washington D.C. 你把它变成一个州是违宪的，因为在宪法里面，它特别就有一个关于华盛顿 D.C. 这样的一个就是特区建立的一个规则。这个规则和这个特区的属性以及它的存在是宪法规定的。所以说，你想把华盛顿 D.C. 改成一个州，本身这个动作就是一个违宪的动作。啊，所以这是一段很有趣的历史。So, Tom, I just wonder, what do you think about the Senate and Congress for this election? Can we take them both?
We
What do you
can. Yeah,
think?
I think we can. And I've heard many, even
Uh,
Democratic senators projecting that the Democrats are going to lose the Senate and the Republicans will gain a slight majority in the Senate. Now, if
mhm.
that happens, then that means that Schumer will no longer be the head of the Senate.
What a good
And
news. I
the
like
difference,
that.
I think a lot of people need to understand about why this matters, that the Republicans take a majority in the Senate, take a majority in the House, is because then the
Mhm,
leadership position is elected, but then typically is going to be a Republican would be elected. Like
mhm,
right now, we've had Schumer all these years with the Democrats controlling the Senate.
mhm,
And then, almost more important, is the chairman of each committee then would be appointed by the head of the Senate. They would all be Republican. And then they get to decide, and the chairman gets to decide what issues will go before each committee to be
mhm,
voted on, to be elected on. One committee, very important committee, would be Judiciary Committee.
mhm,
Judiciary would hear the nominations for Supreme Court
mhm,
and other key positions, and they would make a recommendation to the majority of Congress for who they think should be the appointed person, and then
mhm.
the Senate would vote, and
Right,
that's
right.
how they would confirm these senators. Now,
Mhm,
Supreme Court judges. On the Republican side, same thing. Right now, with Johnson as the Republican Speaker of the House, the
mhm.
Speaker of the House then appoints the committee chairman
Right.
and then would appoint Republicans,
Right.
and would decide what issues go before that, what legislation can be. Articles of impeachment have to come from the House.
Mhm,
Well, if it's a Republican in control, they would control that. When it was a Democrat, they were passing articles of impeachment to impeach Trump twice
right,
4 years ago.
right.
So the majority rule in each house is very important.
Mhm,
Who becomes the speaker or the leader of the Senate?
mhm.
Very important.
Sure, sure，呀，然后我就接着来问 Tom，就是说现在两院的情况怎么样？就是我们能不能就是保守派能不能赢得两院？他认为是完全有可能。那他就进一步解释了你赢得两院的这个重要性在什么地方，就是说，按照这个美国的法律，你赢得两院或者是就是 House 和 Senate，就是众院和参院啊。当你赢得两院的时候，你就可以，就你这个党就成为这个两院的领袖。那这个领袖有一个非常非常大的权利，也是一个可以说至关重要的权利呢，就是他是可以来任命各个委员会的这个主席，各个委员会的一个组成。因为像这个两院的工作呢，它基本上都是用委员会来工作的，就是它一个议题一个议题的来做。那这个议题组织一个委员会，那个议题有另外的委员会，那这个委员会怎么来组成？这个委员会的负责人是谁？这个重要的人事权是掌握在两院的这个领袖手里，而两院的领袖是如何决定的呢？是哪一个党在这个里面的人数多，哪一个党就出领袖。那所以呢，我们看到在共和党方面，如果这民主党方面，如果他掌握了这个House，就是众院，当时我们看到 Nancy Pelosi 很长时间掌握众院，他们就出了很多这些莫名其妙的这些条款。特别是弹劾川普等等，都是他们搞出来的。所以说，你拿到这个多数，你就拿到了这个领导权，拿到了这个重要的人事权。所以为什么这个争夺很重要？因为如果川普回到白宫没有两院的帮助，那他的很多事情会非常难做的。所以Tom, if Trump go back to White House, and I wish he can go back, and I think he will go back, and we only have one Congress, either Senate or Congress, what's going to happen to him?
Well, I think that obviously it's going to be much harder for him to get his agenda passed,
Mm-hmm,
what he's looking at in the future. But much of the agenda he
mm-hmm,
can still get passed. He can still do a lot by executive order, like
mm-hmm,
the Biden. He had the borders controlled and all of the other issues that were so successful in his administration.
mm-hmm,
Biden undid that with executive orders. He had issued over 70 executive orders to open up the border and,
mm-hmm,
and and shut down petroleum, shut down the oil industry, which caused transportation costs to skyrocket, which
right.
cost groceries, agriculture, personal use of vehicles, also to skyrocket. Things came by pretty much executive order. Congress
Mm-hmm,
didn't really pass all the laws for that, and
mm-hmm,
especially opening the border,
mm-hmm,
uh, causing ICE and the border protection agencies, all of that, to really have no choice, not have the enforcement ability to do
mm-hmm,
it at the border. And other significant things. Trump had stay in Mexico. So if you
right.
wanted, and they got the Mexican government to go along with it. So if you
Mm-hmm,
wanted to apply for asylum in the United States,
right.
you couldn't come into the United States to do
Right.
it. You had to stay in Mexico and do it from there. And
Mm-hmm,
then the hearing would be held before you came in the US.
right.
Why that's important is once the alien sets foot on US soil,
Then you
then
cannot.
that's it. They're
Yeah.
they're allowed to stay until it's resolved. And
Right.
there's such a backlog, it's like 12-year wait. So
Right.
now are you going to get all these people to go back to court in 12 years?
Mm-hmm,
No, it's going to be too overwhelming. The court system won't handle it.
right.
So some of those policies, they just, basically Biden just waved a wand like the
Mm-hmm,
Wicked Witch and made that happen.
mm-hmm. Well, so then I have a question is, what's the limitation of the executive order? It seems like if you can have executive order, you can make new laws and then you can do whatever you want. There must be a limitation for
There
that.
is. The
Yeah.
Supreme Court weighs in on whether that particular executive order requires legislation or not, whether that's a decision that Congress needs to make or not, or if it exceeds the authority of the president. For example, Biden
Hmm.
issues executive orders exonerating people from having to pay back their student loans.
Right.
And the Supreme Court weighed in and said, you can't do that. You're exceeding your authority as president. That takes legislation. That takes Congress to be able to forgive those loans, not you. So
Sure.
those are examples of
Hmm.
where the Supreme Court can weigh in. And then the
Mm-hmm.
Supreme Court in their judgment. How conservative is the court for
Mm-hmm.
them to come in and tell the president, no, 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 you don't have that authority?
Okay, so the Supreme Court has the final say for the limitation of the executive order.
True.
And they have to base on the
Or
Constitution.
Congress. Congress can overrule the executive order, pass a law,
Uh-huh.
and if the Supreme Court says that law is constitutional, that's the law.
Okay, so the limitation is holding by the Supreme Court and the Congress,
And
which,
the Congress, well, that's the whole idea of our entire system.
mm-hmm.
Three branches of government, and they balance the balance of power.
Mm-hmm.
So the president can decide he's king and he can do what he wants, but the other two branches can overrule it.
Mm-hmm.
The Supreme Court, if they think they're the king and they're going to make these, then Congress and the president can overrule it. And then the legislature, same thing. They get overruled by the Supreme Court, with the Supreme Court saying that's unconstitutional. You can't do that.
Right.
So that's really the genius of the system.
Right. Exactly.
That no one branch can take over the government all by itself.
Yep. You know what, Tom? By talking with you and listen to your history lesson, I really, really think that we need the election every 4 years because we're not only elect the president, we are reviewing our history. We are reviewing the fundamental of this country, which is
exactly so right.
Right. Yeah. Let me translate this part. It's very, very wonderful parts. Yeah. So 我就问他说，如果川普总统进入白宫，那我确信哈，我认为他应该是可以进去啊，这一次。那么如果两院失去，或者是说他失去两院当中的一院，这个会对他有什么样的影响？那他们就说，那当然他有一些事情做起来肯定就不顺利，但是呢，不要忘记，美总统是可以有总统行政令的，他可以用总统行政令去做很多的事情。那比如说这个。当年的就是川普总统做了一个叫做 Stay in Mexico，就是移民，你如果寻求这个到美国，你不可以进到美国，你要在墨西哥等待，这个是总统行政令。那后来拜登上来之后，把川普总统的总统行政令就废除，就表示他们可以进来，这个都是总统行政令的这个范畴。那行政令其实可以做很多很多的事情，那就像。拜登他已经是美国历史上签总统行政令最多的这样的一个总统，所以我们看到美国在这个4年当中，整个这个政治败坏啊，它这个发生的一个法律的依据跟总统行政令有很大的关系。那所以我就接着问他说，那总统行政令总要有一个限制吧？那难道他做什么都可以吗？会不会有一个这个机构或者有一个方式来限制总统行政令的？他有没有一个就是限度 limitation， 就是一个限度？他们就解释说这个是有的，一个是最高法可以出来说这个行政令违宪，所以这个你不可以有这个行政令。第二呢，Congress 也可以站出来说这个行政令不可以，所以基本上是最高法和国会都有这个权利对这个行政令呢，他们给予这个就是不同意的这个意见。那当他们不同意的时候，这个行政令就执行不下去了。那所以他们就说，其实这就是美国的这个制度设计啊，它是这个 balance，就是有平衡的。哪一方的权力都不能够太大。那他就提到有一个就是拜登的总统令，最后被最高法院去驳回的，就是 student loan。student loan 就是学生贷款，他要去免学生的贷款，他签了一个行政令。那最高法呢，实际上最后issue了一个这个意见书，就是说你这个做法是违宪的，因为学生贷款的这个免除的权利在国会，而不在你总统，所以你签这个行政令是无效的。因此呢，他就解释了这个美国的这个平衡哈法，这是国家机构的和结构的一个平衡。所以我就说，那现在我听听他讲这些东西啊，基本上看起来说，美国每年的总统每4年总统选举是有必要的哈，不但是这个政权的一个更替呢，更多的是每4年都要实际上都是给民众公民的一个教育，就是这个国家到底它是怎么样来建立的哈。其实这是非常非常有意义也有必要的一个事情，因为美国的这样的一个结构在全世界是唯一的一份，所以呢，对于民众来讲，其实是要有一个不断学习的过程。So thank you so much, Tom, for the history lesson, for the Constitution lesson, which I think every citizen need to remember, need to understand, and need to be reminded every 4 years at least. And
I
then,
think so, and I think that's so important because, whether you're a U.S. born citizen or whether you've come in from somewhere else in the world,
mhm,
the system. I think it's so important to understand the
mhm,
thought process,
mhm,
strategies that went into the creation of the system here in the United States, and
mhm,
why it's the longest lasting constitutional system in the world like this.
mhm,
And partially because it can be modified. You can amend the Constitution,
mhm,
or the interpretations can change with
right,
membership of the Supreme Court or Congress or the given president, that there's flexibility in it. But overall, the
mhm,
creation of this system is genius. And I
right,
think a lot of people, this whole Black Lives Matter and people coming up, it's racist, and they were a bunch of white men that made this system back then and all that. They need to stop and recognize really how successful this system has been and why it's been this way.
mhm,
And it's complicated in some ways, and in other ways, it's simply
mhm.
very logical.
嗯，exactly exactly。他说，汤姆就说的是的，就是不管你是在美国出生的美国公民，还是你最后规划的美国公民，比如像我们第一代都是规划的美国公民啊，其实我们要真正来了解这个整个设计的一个思路和设计背后的这样的一个就 strategy 就是一个计划哈和一个就是设计理念啊，这个是非常重要的。因为从全世界的历史来看，那美国呢，实际上是一个人类设计的，就是一种宪政体制，充分考虑到这个人性的宪政体制的，到目前为止最成功的这样的一个范例。那这个里面真是Tom 的话讲叫 genius，这是一个天才的设计啊。它在很多的方面是非常灵活的，因为你可以有很多的修正案。它是被不断修正的，但是它在某一些方面也是非常简单和朴实的，所以它的这两个本身的这个设计的平衡就非常好。所以他说有很多人就是在美国，就比如讲这些什么 Black Lives Matter 这些人，他也许根本不了解这个美国的历史和美国这个国家制度本身设计的一个精妙之处。好，所以这是非常有必要不断的学习，因为有些部分它是很复杂的。I totally agree with you. It's a good balance between the complicated and the simplified. It's perfect combination. But the thing is, people need to understand that. I think
And,
that
and understand that it incorporates human nature. Human
human,
nature is such that humans are going to try to compete with each other,
right?
whether they have to do it by war or
Mm-hmm.
some other method. They're going to be competing for power. And
Yep.
so, what the founding fathers recognized, let's create a system where they can compete nonviolently
Peaceful.
and fight for power
Right.
legally. That way, have a system of power struggle.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the struggle is over, people settle down and say, okay. And that's what happens here
Mm-hmm.
typically, is
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the 4 years, the election happens, the
Mm-hmm.
people get to decide if they want to keep the same group in power, or
Right.
or as the old expression, throw the bums out and bring in new people. But the system will be the same to sustain
Right.
how they have the exercise of power, who gets to exercise it and how they do it, and how
Right.
they have controls on how far they can go with that. And I
Right.
think that that's part of the system that way that
Mm-hmm.
makes that, different. Now, in this election, we've been hearing now for months,
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be riots, there's
Mm-hmm.
going to be violence, there's going to
Mm-hmm.
be all that. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think so. We'll
Mm-hmm.
see. I hope I'm not wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but that's what the predictions were. The people aren't going to accept the result. The people have always in the United States pretty much accepted the results of an election. And
Mm-hmm.
then if they lose it, they decide that's it. We've got to work harder to win back, to get power again, to get the people to back us up again. And so
Right.
the power of the government comes from the people, not from the military that they hire or the law enforcement officers or the National Guard. It comes
Mm-hmm.
from the people saying, okay, we're giving you this authority over us,
Right.
but you have to use it wisely or we'll throw you out.
Right. Exactly. Oh, thank you for the wonderful words. Exactly，那他就讲说，实际上这个里面就是在宪法是在美国整个的设计里头啊，他充分考虑了这个人性。那人性的特点就是人是好斗的，特别是人是会为这个权利而互相争斗。那我们在看到世界很多国家的历史，就是打的这个血流成河，其实都是为了这个权利。那美国在设计的时候，他充分考虑到这个人性的。一个存在和这个人性的一个永远存在这个持续性，所以呢，它提供一套系统，就是说你可以互相争斗这个权利，但是是在一个框架内争斗，但是是用一个和平的方式来这个互相这个夺权哈，这是一个第二个，它设计了一个最精妙的，就是这个权利是来自于人民的，而不是来自于武力的。好，所以呢，他就接着就是说，在美国，很多人就说，哦，2024这个选举万一不行，就会有一些打仗啊，或者大家都打起来了哈。那他们就认为这个可能倒不会哈，因为基本上美国人是接受这样的一个和平转移这个政权。那如果说某一次不行，他们可能大部分美国人会想，OK，那我们就更加努力的去做，那我们下次把这个事情做成，嗯。在美国人心中应该深深根植的一个概念，就是国家的权利啊，比如说这个选总统的这个权利是来自于民众，来自于选民，而不是来自于军队，来自于枪杆子，来自于这个互相就是用人的这个性命哈打的血流成河，不是这样来的。是人民给的。那如果你干得很好，那你可以继续干下去。人民把这个权利给到你。那如果你干得不好，人民就可以把这个权利收回，那就是说把你摔出白宫啊，就是这样的一个设计哈。所以它是充分考虑了人性，充分考虑人性的一个对于权力的这样一个渴望和这样一个好斗的本性，把它定归在一个文明交接的这样一个范畴内。So hopefully this year we will see the peaceful transfer of the power. And this is the other question I like to ask you is I heard that General Flynn has a talk today, and he said he worried about two things after the election. Say Trump is being elected as the next president, 47th, and then he just worried about some dark force still want to do some bad thing to him, like assassination attempt. They do twice. They can do the third time. That's it. That's one. Second is, will they certify his election victory? They can just
That's a
say,
good question, and I think Joaquin Jeffries and some other Democrats have said, "Oh, we won't certify." Well,
right,
we'll see. We'll see if that happens. If Trump gets elected, we'll
right,
see if they want to do that and uh, and not certify and create additional division and possibly violence in the country by doing that. And
right,
then that, I think, would be enough to convince the entire country how evil the Democratic Party really is. If
mm-hmm,
they were willing to go to that length
mm-hmm,
to stop President Trump, between killing him, prosecuting him, all these other things, if they go to
uh-huh,
that length to try to twist the rules in the Congress, we'll see. We'll see if that happens. I'm hoping that they're bluffing and
right,
that
right,
they'll realize
mm-hmm,
that they may lose this election, but they'll lose the next 10 elections if they really, really exceed their power and authority and
mm-hmm,
lose the respect, not just the support of the American people, but the overall respect for it.
right. And then, yeah, he mentioned about there is a court day at November 26th. Remember, in New York court, they're going to sentence Trump. So
All right.
possibly,
All right.
yeah, it might happen. Is they still sentence him like 4 years in prison, and then use that as an excuse to decertify him. So we'll see, huh?
We'll see.
Okay.
And then by that time, we'll have an elected vice president also.
Right.
So, so if
Yeah.
Trump gets elected, and to me, that also shows the genius of Donald Trump to pick somebody so well qualified as
Uh-huh.
J.D. Vance.
Uh-huh.
And so, because I think the attempts to assassinate him will continue, as
Uh-huh.
long as he, if he gets elected, they're going to continue. If he gets inaugurated, it's going to continue.
Mm-hmm.
So all we can hope is that they'll be able to keep him alive
Right.
and prevent that from happening.
Right, right，所以我问这个 Tom，就是说，我今天看到福林将军讲的，就是有一番讲话，就是说他并不担心川普总统会输，但是他想说，对方有可能做一些事，就第一会继续想去谋杀川普总统，那第二呢，就是说11月26号在纽约的法庭要给川普判刑，那如果纽约的法庭继续判刑，那1月6号。就是最后认证的时候，他们可以利用这个理由不认证川普总统，即便你赢了，那就是继续阻止他回到白宫。那他们的意思就是说，那我们要来看他们是不是敢走这么远。那如果他敢走这么远的话，那他今后至少说10年，他不可能再得到美国人的选票了，因为这个实在是就是 cross line 了，就是太过分了。那再次证明给美国人看，就是这个党已经完全不能信任。所以说，他不是说最后会失去选票，而是他失去所有人的一个信任了。到这个程度呢，他认为说，也许他们不会这样来做这个事情，但是我们要继续来观察。So you mean that if they do so, they lost the most. They lost the
I think,
vote, and
yeah,
the respect of the American people.
I
Uh,
think.
yeah, we have so many people just leave the message and say hi to you and thank you so much. And then, and first time join the show in life. Pray for a friend from Norway. Pray for USA. Friend from Chile. Um, pray for USA. Pray for President Trump. I just saw so many people and in my program. They're from all over the world. They pray for Trump, pray for USA, and they really understand that if USA fall, the world will fall.
Right.
Yeah. So the lady is from the East Coast, and then she said the weather is so good today at East Coast. Um, let's see. Oh, the gentleman from Chile asked Tom, he see the Soros do the investigation for the American debits, the national debits. So is that means the civil war will coming? The American will get into some chaos time. What do you think about Soros investigation?
I don't know for sure. And I think that Soros has so little respect from so many people that I don't
Yeah.
know how far he can get with any of his, what he's going to try to do or what he's able to do and all of that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that people now are understanding that the Soroses, father, son, that they have been responsible for appointing so many district attorneys and
Right.
prosecutors to not prosecute, to undermine
Mm-hmm.
the fabric of U.S. society by making it a criminal society and
Exactly.
having crime succeed. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that now many people recognize no, no more.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the re-election of President Trump, if that happens, hopefully, I think in large measure is going to do with how much they've corrupted local politicians, local prosecutors, local mayors, and all that. And I think that that's going to be a huge, huge factor. So
Mm-hmm.
Trump, when he finishes his rally and he says, I'm going to make America safe again, I
Right.
think that strikes a nerve with people that have to commute downtown to a big city or travel across the country and
Mm-hmm.
run into the potential of just horrible criminals, Americans and or from other parts of the world like Venezuelan gangs and MS-13 and some of that. And you've got them pushing people off of subway platforms in front of oncoming trains and doing some of the just horrible things that are
Mm-hmm.
happening, and the people not being prosecuted or not being deported or all of those things. So I think that all of that, everything that Soros has done is they've gotten away with it now for a couple of years. But I think that what they've really done, if you really want to credit how come Trump is going to be the next president, because of him, because of them, because of people like them,
right.
not prosecuting real criminals.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the difference.
Right, right. Thank you so much. Thank you. 他就是说，至于索罗斯为什么去做这个股票这个动作，他不是太清楚啊，所以他对这个事情本身他没有什么看法。但是呢，他的看法就是说，索罗斯家族就是索罗斯和他的儿子对美国现在日益恶化的，特别是大城市的社会治安，有着不可推卸的责任，是最为歹毒的这个背后推手，因为他们安排了很多的这个极左派的检察官在各个大城市的检察官的位置，所以这些大城市的治安哈，就一般的治安可以说急剧的下降。下降到一个程度，就是他说川普总统每次的 rally 最后他总会说 "We'll make Americans safe again"，就是我们会让美国再次的安全。他说这句话一定是打动了很多人，因为现在美国这个大城市的安全已经下降到一个你很难想象的程度，而这个背后直接的一个原因就是当地的检察官他对这些罪行不去起诉。那就造成了这个犯罪横行的这个局面，所以他是很希望川普总统回到白宫之后，对索罗斯这个背后的一些动作和他们所腐蚀的这些地方官员要狠狠的打击哈，这是对美国来讲是特别重要的一件事情。All right, well, thank you so very much, Tom. I really appreciate your time and your wisdom, and then just tell us to stay tough, to understand the history, and to be
exactly.
strong. Yeah. All
well,
right.
Thank you for the opportunity, and to all of your listeners, thank you for listening. Thank you for being there, and thank you for having the desire to learn more about the United States. Because, like I said, I talked to many people born here that they don't teach the history, civics, geography in school like they used to. So many Americans are graduating from high school or college and are very ignorant about the world around us, the rest of the world. And I think that by itself is dangerous, that we need an educated public to understand why it's so important that we have these systems and that they work.
Right, exactly. Let me please give me some minutes, and then I like to translate. Yeah, it's so important. 我就很谢谢他花时间跟我们去做这个节目，也跟我们去讲一些很多历史的东西。那他实际上很谢谢有这个机会，他也非常感谢所有的这些观众啊，就他非常谢谢大家愿意来学习这个美国的历史。好，这一点他特别感谢。他说现在美国的学校里面有很多的年轻人哈，他们已经不学这个国家的历史，也不学这个国家是怎么来建立的，所以这是一个非常危险的一个局面。那川普总统回到白宫以后呢，一定把这些的基本的知识和作为一个美国人一定要了解的东西呢，要就是重回课堂。所以他在这个状况下就特别感谢我们作为第一代的移民，或者至少说我们的观众都可能不是在美国出生的，有这么大的热情去来学习美国的一切，所以对此他感到非常的欣慰，也非常的感谢大家。So let's hope tonight, let's wish, and I have the confidence that Trump gonna win, and the Congress and the Senate gonna win today. And this is a turning point of this nation, and we can see the balance of the nation.
I agree. I agree completely.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, everyone, for watching and listening. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And please say hi to your father.
I will. And by the way, good luck to you, because I know you're going to be working very late tonight.
Yeah.
You've been working late night after night. I've been noticing, your podcast posts. So
right.
keep up the great work. You're doing your share to help preserve the country. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And Trump 2024.
Agree.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.